microphone up for me because it doesn't make the doctor. Hold on a second.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. All praises are Allah's, Lord of the worlds, and may His peace and blessings be upon our Master, the Holy Prophet Muhammad, and His pure, immaculate Ahlul Bayt. Just one or two short points I wanted to mention. Thank you for those who have sent feedback, and I appreciate that it's a bit difficult maybe for many of you, and I was told that the youth and some of the sisters may find the content a bit difficult to absorb. Inshallah, if you just give me 1 or 2 days, and then we'll go into more family matters and we'll speak about children, parents, marriage and these kind of things. But these points, especially for the youth, if they hear them, even if they don't understand, 10 or 20 years down the line, they will absorb it much better. I remember when I was listening to Natural Balagha by a scholar more than 25 years ago in Manchester, I wouldn't understand anything. But once in Qom and doing the studies, many of the things clicked. So it is useful to be aware of some of these points. So today and tomorrow, it still has that irfani, akhlaqi touch, and then after we'll go into other areas, inshallah. In chapter 35, verse 22, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُسْمِعُ مَن يَشَاءُ. Verily Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes whoever wants to hear. It's very delicate at this point now. This is not a physical hearing, otherwise we can all hear. But Allah makes those who want to hear the truth beyond this world to hear. Allah will make that happen. But you have to want to hear. وَمَا أَنْتَ بِمُسْمِعٍ مَنْ فِي الْقُبُورِ. And you won't make those who are in their graves hear. You won't make them hear. Now this isn't those who are physically buried in their graves. That's evident. So who are those who are man fil qubur, those who are in their graves? Who are they? That whatever you do, you won't make them hear the truth. Man fil qubur are those who are buried by their animal side. Remember the talk we had on you are what you eat, where we were speaking of the Sharia wants you to discipline your soul through the common daily actions that you do every day. And how it wanted you to discipline your soul through eating. And this applies through sleeping, through one's sexual patterns, everything. Animals eat, humans eat differently. Animals sleep, humans sleep differently. We're humans. But if you indeed, in one's nutritional appetite, sexual appetite, sleeping patterns, if one lets the animal side predominate over one, you've buried yourself in the grave. These people, once buried, you can't make them hear. Because they've sealed themselves. Although one should never lose hope. It's always possible. But those who are in their graves, no, you can't make them hear. If you want to hear, that animal side, that animal dimension has to be reduced to a maximum. Now, in chapter 25, verse 44, this hearing, not with the physical ear, this hearing that the Quran speaks of, in this verse is commentated and explained as having aql, which is having reason. It's not the reason that we commonly think about, 2 2s or 4, and that kind of reason, that kind of rationality. We'll come to that in a minute. But hearing is on a par with having aql, that intellect. So here we suddenly, remember yesterday, the event at Ayatollah Hassanzadeh, Rahmatullah alayhi, Hafidahullah, had what he said. He was narrating from one of his ustads who heard a voice whilst awake, but it wasn't a physical voice. Exit the intellect in the path of love. That intellect, he meant rational deductions, rationality. However, in the Quran, when it speaks about aql, there's another meaning to aql, which is referred to. So I didn't want you to confuse these two meanings. That's why I wanted to just speak out the aql that the Quran refers to here. That aql is on a par with hearing the truths. أَمْ تَحْسَبُ أَنَّ أَكْثَرَهُمْ يَسْمَعُونَ أَوْ يَعْقِلُونَ. Do you think that most people hear or reason, have aql? I'll explain what it is though soon. See, these two are used on a par with one another. This awe is a commentating awe. It's commentating what it means when it says yasma'un. And suddenly we see that this hearing is defined as and on a par with having aql. But we usually associate having aql as that rationality. No, this is something else. You may be the most rational person on earth, but you may have no Quranic aql, what the Quran refers to aql. So when aql is used on a par with those who hear, now we see that aql only reaches fruition and is only actualized when someone is not manfil qubur, is not buried in one's grave. How did we define being buried in your graves? When the animal dimension predominates over you. If you predominate over your animal side, then you have aql. And actually in verse 25-44, the remainder of the verse shows that aql, the opposite of it is when you're drowned in the animal side. أَمْ تَحْسَبُ أَنَّ أَكْثَرَهُمْ يَسْمَعُونَ أَوْ يَعْقِلُونَ. Do you think most of them hear or have aql? إِنْ هُمْ إِلَّا كَالْأَنْعَامِ. No, they're but like animals. You see? Predominated by the animal side. I'm not sure if I've been able to convey the point here. It's a very delicate point. They are like animals. They are like animals. It doesn't say they are animals. They're still humans. And they'll be humans in barzakh onwards, in the hereafter, but with an animal phenotype. That of a wolf, pig, cow, or whatever. If they were animals, they wouldn't suffer with those images, which are in unity with themselves as a result of their actions. But they're going to suffer when they go in the hereafter. Like we will suffer. In our dreams, for example, if we suddenly see a wolf attacking, we wake up, but there's no waking up there now. So it's going to be painful. And the pain there is more qualitatively than the pain here. Alhum adallu sabila. They're even more astray in their ways. Because they're humans. They had a human potential and they wasted it. Animals, they reach their potential completely. A wolf does what a wolf has been assigned to do in creation, by nature. You didn't see a wolf do anything other than predator attributes. That's perfection for the wolf. The cow has its own way of life and it actualizes it. Humans, their potential is to acquire the divine attributes and incorporate it within themselves. Be a manifestation of Allah's attributes. After all, we're Allah's successor, Khalifa on earth. The successor has to share the attributes of the person who's assigned them as the successor. We have to manifest Allah's attributes. That's our potential. So if we be predominated by the animal side, we've wasted ourselves, and therefore even worse than animals. Who are animals with animal attributes, but that was their potential. That was their perfection. Our perfection was something else, but we remained on a par with that of animals. And we see Nahjul Balagha, Amir al-Mu'mineen, in relation to the aim of sending the prophets. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam says, يُثِيرُ لَهُمْ دَفَائِنَ الْأُغُورِ. In sending all these prophets, it was to uproot that which is buried in the aql. Because people, before the prophets was come, were buried in the animal side, preventing them to actualize that aql. And so the prophets would come with the Sharia, and the rationale behind the Sharia was to eliminate the animal side so one's aql dimension can be actualized. Okay. So, humans, it's one reality. It's I, the first person singular, the ana, I, or man in Farsi. It's one reality. It depends how this one reality acts. If they're absorbed in this physical world, if the animal dimension predominates over them, that I is called a name. That name is nafs. If one predominates over the animal dimension and succeeds in that, that I is given a name. It's called aqala. And I'm going to read a tradition, the attributes of those who have aql, so we can have a method of evaluating ourselves, whether we are at the realm of aql or no, we're still below. And then once aql succeeds, and you reach a stage where you constantly recall Allah, that I is now given a name. It's called qalb. After the realm of qalb, if you succeed to detach from the worldly life, the I is given a name. It's called the ruh. Now the ruh, after physical death, automatically we are called that ruh. But the point is, we can acquire that realm, that degree, before physical death. Mutu qabla an tamutu. Die a spiritual death. Transcend beyond the metaphysical before you die a physical death. So they are just names. After the realm of the ruh, there are other names. There is no end. Rajab Ali al-Bursi, a very famous Sufi in Irfan, in Islam, he says that in the Bible there's a verse, and he gave the Arabic. He said, we believe in this too. And the Arabic was, ظَاهِرُكَ لِلْفَنَا. Your outside is to perish. وَبَاطِنُكَ أَنَا. Your inner side is me. He's saying that Allah said this in the Bible. Your inner side is me. Our potential is I. And unity with Allah, with awareness, it's infinite. Okay, so this is the aql of the Quran. When you see aql mentioned in the Quran, this is what it means. Not the rationality that even atheists can have, at levels much higher than Muslims maybe. And that's good too. It's important, even rational deductions. These are not, useless matters, they're important. Even in relation to aqaid, they are an important step. However, it doesn't guarantee salvation. Now, there's one tradition I want to mention here, where infallibles mention this tradition, giving us an indicator whether we have that dimension of the Quranic aql or not. And if we don't have it, how much are we lacking? And there are 10 of them, 10 indicators. We can all evaluate ourselves. There's no need to evaluate others through them. Let everyone concentrate on themselves. And then at the end you can judge for yourself if you're at least at this dimension of the eye. لم يعبد الله بشيء أفضل من العقل. Allah isn't worshipped in a more superior way than by the aql. So by the aql, Allah is worshipped best. And we have traditions that al-aqlu ma ubida bihi rahman. Aql is that which takes you to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This aql too, it's not a rational aql necessarily. It's when the animal side within you is eliminated. It allows you to see, allows you to hear the metaphysical. وَلَا يَكُونُ الْمُؤْمِنُ عَاقِلًا. The mu'min, the believer, won't be considered as having aql حتى يجتمع فيه 10 خصال, until 10 attributes are assembled together in this one mu'min. You see, so becoming mu'min is easy. Becoming aqil, having aql, the Quranic way, that's difficult. Don't be complacent with yourselves. The first attribute, al-khayru minhu ma'amul. People have hope in their virtue. They will approach them. They say, this person, nothing but good comes out of them. Let's approach them, they may help us. People speak with them comfortably. Because they regard these people as only exhibiting virtue in all their walks of life. And people are comfortable with them. Secondly, وَالشَّرُّ مِنْهُ مَأْمُونَ. People are secure from their vice. If they have any faults, but people are secure from them. They don't receive any vicious attributes, any vicious behavior from these people. They're safe. They feel secure with them. The third, يَسْتَكْثِرُ قَلِيلَ الْخَيْرِ مِنْ غَيْرِهِ. If others do very little virtue, those who are aqil, who have aql, they exaggerate and multiply that little virtue to a lot. They never undermine or belittle even the most smallest of good actions others do. وَيَسْتَقِلُّ كَثِيرَ الْخَيْرِ مِنْ نَفْسِهِ. But the aqil, even if they do a lot of good actions, they always belittle their the voluminous good that they have done. They belittle it. They deem it on a very small scale. You know, I've done nothing. This is nothing. Even though it's a lot. وَلَا يَسْأَمُ مِنْ طَلَبِ الْعِلْمِ طُولَ عُمْرِهِ. During their lives, they'll never get tired of acquiring knowledge. See, it eventually reaches a point when that animal side predominates. After 10, 20, 30 years, one gets tired of acquiring knowledge. But the aqil never gets tired throughout one's life in wanting to know. The sixth, وَلَا يَتَبَرَّمُ بِطُلَّابِ الْحَوَائِجِ قِبَلَهِ. They don't feel restricted when others come to ask for requests from them. They approach the aqil person, can you do this for me, can you do that for me? The aqil will never, even if they can't help, but they'll never feel restricted. They won't say, oh no, he's come again, he wants something from me. They never think like that, they don't feel like that. These things are not academic points. These things are to be tasted. And to taste them, you have to eliminate the animal side. Then the last four, it keeps on getting more and more difficult here. الذل أحب إلي من العز. More endearing to them than honor is a dhul. I'm not sure how to translate this. It's the opposite of honor, but it's humiliation or debasement. But they're not after honor anyway. That absence of honor is much more endearing to them than being honored amongst people in a community. They're not after it. وَالْفَقْرُ أَحَبُّ إِلَيْ مِنَ الْغِنَى. Poverty is more endearing to them than wealth. Now, poverty is not good. Poverty is not a good thing. I'm not here to disseminate poverty. But you see, this is a different realm. If we have problems in understanding this, it's because we have problems. We can't relate to these truths because we've never been in that realm. They love poverty. It's much more endearing to them at this stage. When you go to higher stages, it doesn't matter then whether you're poor or you're rich. At this stage, this is more endearing. نَسِيبُهُ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا الْغُوتِ. Their share in this world is that which is necessary to spend, the basic expenses. Now, that which is the basic, the minimum, for example, in America, may be different to that which is the minimum in Iran. It changes from culture to culture, place to place. In various places, a car, a laptop, 2 cars, or these things may be a minimum depending on one's socio-economic status. Everyone to their own capacity, everyone to their own status. But that which is necessary, on a par with their status, they spend. Nothing more. وَالْآشِرَةُ, and the 10th, وَمَا الْآشِرَةُ, and what a 10th, it's very difficult for you to know what this 10th one is. What a 10th one this is going to be. This is the most difficult one. لا يرى أحدا إلا قال هو خير مني وأتقى. See, this is Islamic ethics. We'll never grow if we don't have these attributes. The 10th is when you, whoever you see, you say to yourself, he's better than me, وَخَيْرٌ مِنِّي, and he has more taqwa than me. But not just saying it, believing it. And you won't be able to believe this until you eliminate the animal side. These are just academic points. If you take them as academic points, I'm wasting my time, you're wasting your time listening to them. Whoever you see, you really see them, they are better than me. They have more taqwa than me. Now this tradition is a very long tradition, and then it goes, explains this last one. See, because if they are sinning on the outside, you have to believe that maybe on the inside they're better than you. Just because they have 1 or 2 faults on the outside, you don't judge. And if they are better than you on the outside, and they have more taqwa, they're better than you, and you belittle yourself, and go and learn from them. Let them be a model for you. But in any case, you have to see them truly as better than you. many of the mukashafat, many of the unveilings, the apparitions that many of the urafa have encountered, it followed this 10th one. There was one who entered the haram of Amir al-Mu'mineen al-Najaf, and before he was entering it, as a result of the spiritual wayfaring he would do before, on entering it, he said to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he's so low that he had this feeling, it's in his memoirs, that I am so low that everyone here is so much better than me that I'm embarrassed to walk with them. He had reached that level. And then with this, when he entered the haram, he saw many truths, metaphysical truths. You see, these things are important. If we want to taste the truth of religion, it's going to take some practice. So these are the 10. I just want to open up one of them, because in many communities, they don't understand the abhorrence of this particular act. Look, the second one was in relation to people being secure from their words, from their actions. We have traditions that a third of the believers who are going to burn in the hereafter, it's as a result of the action of backbiting. And they were believers, they were good believers too, but they have to burn a certain amount as a result of their own actions. One's actions will be embodied in the hereafter. This backbiting is very problematic. 1/3 is a very high fraction of believers. Backbiting is when you disclose a Muslim's faults behind their back. So it's disclosing a Muslim's faults. The faults are true faults. I mean, if you're disclosing a Muslim's things like the Muslim didn't do, that's slander. That's something else. Backbiting is when you disclose a Muslim's faults, things that they really did do wrong. And just before I explain this, what about if you disclose a Christians or Jews or others, non-Shia people's faults? Isn't that backbiting? It's not backbiting by definition. The Sharia has a definition for backbiting, and that doesn't fit in it. But it is unethical. It does pollute the heart. And if that continues, and that pollution reaches a certain threshold, it will make you susceptible to Sharia sins. I spoke about this a few nights ago, this concept. So that's unethical. It doesn't mean you should freely backbite over Christians, Jews and others. But here, with backbiting, it's a specific definition. Now the rationale behind backbiting is because you're compromising the dignity of your fellow believer. You can't compromise their dignity. Their dignity is so high that if you were to backbite behind them, that would be compromising their dignity, and that would be haram. The dignity of the believer is more than the dignity of the holy Kaaba, according to traditions. That doesn't mean they don't have dignity, the non-believers. I mean those who are not Shias like Christians, Jews and so on and so forth. Just that there's a degree of dignity. Shias, with their aqa'id, they have X dignity, that they will be compromised. But that doesn't mean that others don't have dignity. When just on a marginal point, in Islam when it says it's better if you give charity to a Muslim than a non-Muslim, it doesn't mean that that Muslim necessarily is better than the non-Muslim. No. It's just that when you give charity to the Muslim, you're spreading Tawheed. You're spreading that aqaid by default. That's important. We don't want to judge anyone here. But giving charity to Christians too is good. But when we say it's better, that's the reason. Because you're spreading that aqaid through giving charity to that Muslim. Anyway, so disclosing a Muslim's faults behind the back, that's haram. That's defined as backbiting. In the verse in the Holy Quran, Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu, I'm not sure, I mean, it says wrong. You may either correct me, but you have to check it's in Surah Al-Hujurat. Ijtanibu, O you who are believers, Ijtanibu kathiran min ad-dhan, inna ad-dhanna, inna ba'da ad-dhan ithmun. Thank you. Inna ba'da ad-dhan ithmun. Avoid suspicions. Some suspicions are sins. وَلَا تَجَسَّسُوا وَلَا يَغْتَبْ بَعْضُكُمْ بَعْضًا. Don't spy and don't backbite over one another. أَيُحِبُّ أَحَدُكُمْ أَن يَأْكُلَ لَحْمَ أَخِي مَيْتًا فَكَرِهْتُمُوهُ. Does any one of you like to consume the corpse of their brother, the dead corpse, dead body of their brother? You detest it. Here, backbiting has been shown to be manifested as one consuming the corpse of one's brother. And I gave the reason of that before. I don't want to repeat it. Just one, two little points. Sorry, I keep on going into these marginal points, but suspicions too. Some suspicions are haram. You're walking along the street, someone comes out of a bar, or a public house, we call it in England, and then you say, oh, he's done this haram thing. You're suspicious towards them. That's haram. How do you know what they've done? They just come out of a place. Just because they've come out of a bad place, it doesn't mean they've done anything. If you have that suspicion within you in relation to them, you've compromised their dignity before yourself, and that's haram in Islam. You can't do that. See, all these rulings are based on that ethical principle. You can't compromise the dignity of a believer. وَلَوْ تَجَسَّسُوا. Don't spy either. Don't spy on people. Let's see where he's going. He's gone down this road. This road has many bad places. Let's go and see where he's going. You're compromising the dignity of that person. You can't follow them. For example, you tell someone, go and buy some bread from this shop. Don't go from the other shop though. And that someone receives the money and goes to buy some bread, then you follow them just to see if they've, they listen to you. Or for example, they come back, they bring the bread, they said that shop was closed, I bought it from the other one. Then you go and check whether the shop was really closed. This kind of spying. That's haram. Why? Because you're compromising the dignity of the person. You're doing something which may reveal the faults of a believer. That's haram in Islam. See, this is, there are some things in ethics which are sins on the Sharia level. Some things in ethics aren't a sin on the Sharia level, but they're ethically problematic. All these three examples, suspicions, spying and backbiting, these are haram according to the Sharia now. Now yes, parents in relation to children, very indirectly, there is a degree of spying they can do, or being suspicious, if they feel that the best interest of the child that they are, under their supervision, will be compromised They have responsibilities at the end of the day. But be careful, even with parents, you have to do it in the best way. Okay, now coming back to backbiting. وَلَا يَغْتَبْ بَعْضُكُمْ بَعْضًا. Don't backbite one another. It means revealing, disclosing a Muslim's faults behind their back. Faults that they really do have. But it's disclosing them. So let's say if someone has a fault in public, for example in a community, in a gathering, they all know because they do this thing in public. Then that won't be backbiting if I was to speak behind their back. And say, for example, this person doesn't have a beard or doesn't wear the hijab. It won't be backbiting, but it would be gossiping though. It won't be, it doesn't qualify as backbiting because you're not revealing or disclosing anything. Everyone knows they have this fault. But backbiting is in relation to those faults which aren't public yet. They haven't been made public. People don't know. So for example, someone goes and says, oh, you know, this person, on their body, they have even faults of their body, for example. They have this very ugly mole or a lot of skin tags or this. That's disclosing someone's faults. Assuming that's regarded a fault. You see? That would be because that person, you just disclosed to someone the faults of someone else. They didn't know. It wasn't something which was known to them. It wasn't apparent on the outside. It has to qualify as disclosing that fault of the Muslim. So, for example, you go to someone and ask them, this sister, for example, I want to marry her. You know her, can you speak about her? Let's say now the sister has many faults. The person who's being asked advice should first say, it's not, maybe it's not good for you to marry. Try to take it out. Because you know that this person wants, for example, a Sharia abiding person, and the person that you've asked for advice knows, for example, the sister drinks alcohol and there's many other things. Here, you can't automatically, it's a first course of action, say no, because she does this, she does that, and the other. No, you don't do that. You first say, no, this is not suitable for you. If the person you feel isn't listening and wants to continue and to marry the sister, only then, you only say one fault. You don't give the whole list. You have to maximally compromise the dignity of the sister. But even when you do disclose that one fault, here you would be allowed, because someone has come in consultation to you, you would be allowed to reveal it is backbiting still, but it won't be deemed haram. These are exceptions to backbiting. But still, instead of giving the whole list, you do it one by one. And if that person listens to you after the first fault, that's it. You see? Or for example, you see someone who is drinking alcohol in a bar, and here, if someone asks about you, they want to make that person a leader of a community, you just have to say no, this person isn't suitable for being a Muslim leader, for example. Only if they say they're not convinced of what you're saying and they won't listen and they still are adamant, then only then you have to disclose, and that would be allowed because the best interest of the community is at stake. Now let's say someone is going to marry someone, a sister is going to marry a brother, and the sister didn't come to you for advice. But you know this brother is doing actions which if the sister knew, she would never go and marry. Even though the sister never came to ask for consultation, here too, you do have that right. Because you know it's the well-being of the sister here. It's important. You have to care for the Muslim, the believer here. And there are many exceptions like this. For example, you feel someone has these deviations in their aqa'id, or they're doing these vicious actions, and you feel that if you were to backbite, it would benefit them. That would be allowed too. For example, or let me first give this example. Another exception to backbiting, and this is found in the Holy Quran too, is the oppressed against the oppressor. So someone has done me wrong, okay? I can go and reveal the faults of that person. However, to who can you reveal the faults of that person? You can't reveal it to anyone. It has to be to someone who can influence and correct that person's ways. So if someone has done me wrong, I can't go and tell any Tom, Dick and Harry that I can't reveal or disclose that person's faults, because they can't do anything about it. Just because I'm oppressed, it doesn't give me the right to go and tell others. I have to only go and disclose, assuming I want to disclose, and it will be allowed, it's an exception again to backbiting, to someone who has a role as a community leader, can go and correct the ways of that person. So if I just go and tell my mother, for example, it will be backbiting, assuming my mother knows that person. That's another thing. If I go to someone, my mother for example, and reveal the faults of someone, but my mother has no knowledge of who that person is, that's not backbiting, because you're not disclosing anyone's faults. My mother doesn't know that person. That's another thing. Okay, so the last one, you can only reveal the faults when you're oppressed, to those who can do something about it, not to anyone. Sometimes they ask, can we, to receive consolement and to receive some help, someone to, to empty ourselves out, can we go in one-to-ones to someone and empty ourselves out and say that this person oppressed me by doing this, that and the other? Well, the answer is no. It may make you feel good that you've emptied yourselves, but if that person can't do anything to correct the backbited person's ways, you can't empty yourself out and just reveal all that person's faults. You see, there's so many intricacies here to backbiting. What if you say one of John's children did this? You're revealing a fault, but you didn't say which one. That won't be deemed as a backbiting by definition, but it can be still haram, because you've exposed each of those 4 people to debasement, to dishonor. It's only one of them, but you've put the other 3, you've exposed them to disrespect. That person is now thinking negatively. It can be him, it can be him, it can be him, or him. See, even that. But that's not backbiting by definition, but it is haram. You can't hurt people, you can't disrespect people. Now let's say someone's backbited. Let's say they've committed the sin and they want to repent. Here, Ayatollah Hassan Zadeh has given a very good criterion, which is agreed upon by everyone. There may be small differences, but everyone accepts this framework. That, let's say, I backbited behind Mr. A to Mr. B. The criterion is this: did Mr. A get to know that I backbited behind them? If Mr. A did get to know, in addition to me repenting before Allah, repenting, it has to be true repentance, has to be with remorse, has to be with the iron will not to repeat it again. In addition to that repentance, I have to go to Mr. A and seek their forgiveness. But let's say Mr. A never got to know, as far as I know, that I backbited behind them. Here, repenting before Allah alone is sufficient. You don't have to go. Ayatollah Sistani, in the chapter of Taqleed, in his Minhaj al-Salihin, which is his most authoritative book in fiqh, he says it's ihtiyat mustahab to go to the person who you've backbited if they've got to know about it, or even if they haven't got to know about it. He says it's ihtiyat mustahab to go as long as it doesn't cause any problems. See? And if they don't know about it, the problem is if they never got to know about it, you going to them, it will cause problems. It's only if they do get to know about it, then he says it's ihtiyat mustahab. When something is ihtiyat mustahab, it means it was very close to become a fatwa. There's already a fatwa present. But Ayatollah Sistani was very close to give this a fatwa instead of the other one. But there was some impediment and he sufficed with the previous fatwa. The fatwa being you don't have to go to seek that forgiveness. But when he says it's ihtiyat mustahab, it's better to go, but you don't have to do it. That's the difference between ihtiyat mustahab and ihtiyat wajib. With ihtiyat wajib, there is no fatwa present. The marja is still not 100% sure whether this is a fatwa, but there's no fatwa present. So he says it's ihtiyat wajib to do X action, and you have to do it if you're a follower of that marja, and if you don't, you can go to the next in line, who is most learned, assuming they do have a fatwa, because when they say ihtiyat mustahab, it's not a fatwa by definition. But with ihtiyat mustahab, there's a fatwa there already. But the marja, when it says it's ihtiyat mustahab to do it, it's almost as if he was almost going to give that as a fatwa. It's like saying the tasbihatul arba'a, subhanallahi walhamdulillahi wa la. Saying that once is a fatwa. You have to do it once. Then the marajis, most of them say it's ihtiyat mustahab to do it 3 times. You don't have to do it, it's better if you do it. But that doing it 3 times was almost on the brink of becoming a fatwa, but it never was realized. So he sufficed with the fatwa where you have to say it once. Assuming that fatwa of once didn't exist, he would have said it's ihtiyat wajib to be said. That's a further discussion. Okay, sorry, I think I went over time. وصلى الله على محمد وعلى آله.